Here's the one thing, Heather. Our fans and our media and everybody nowadays, we know too much.
You're telling me that he never got mad at the teammate for making a mistake?
We've heard
Just because those channels are free and available doesn't mean that every conversation is meant for everyone.
You know, our cars typically can get through the field a little bit easier, and that's the thing I would say is a little bit more frustrating for us is, you know, we feel like we should be able to lose our track position at times and still drive back through there.
Welcome on to the Backstretch. I am News 5's Heather Williams, and Talladega was certainly an interesting weekend. A lot of things came out of this weekend's race at Talladega that I certainly did not see coming. First of all, the feud between Chipper Jones and Joey Logano. I'm going to talk about this with Chris when he joins us in a little bit, so I don't want to get too much into it, but I understand sort of why Chipper didn't like what Joey said, but I also feel like Chipper Jones, of all people, should understand that team communication and things that happen in huddles and dugouts and on team radios is heat of the moment anger stuff, right? It's not necessarily meant for everybody to hear. NASCAR lets you hear, and Joey should be aware of that, and Joey should, in his mind, know that and keep that off the radio. But sometimes you just are upset in the moment. And Joey didn't have all the information, and I'm sure once Joey got all the information, he felt differently. But it's some of that criticism, I believe, was really unfair of Joey Logano. And so that's just my feeling on that. Now, like I said, Chris and I will talk about that a lot more coming up. Also, the race was interesting. It was not the worst Talladega/Daytona race I've ever seen in my life. Certainly not the best that I've ever seen in my life. But the response from people afterwards is fascinating. And this is something I'm going to talk about sort of in my final thought. It's kind of a reoccurring theme for the year, which is we seem to be romanticizing a time in which the criticism of the on-track product was exactly the same as it is now. Like, I realize there are a lot of race fans now that are 20, 30, probably even 40 years old, that were young children, preteens, teenagers 20 years ago. And everything is just cooler because you don't understand it when you're that age. So you're romanticizing that time of racing. But as somebody who worked in the garage, who was there, who was in their 20s and 30s during that time, that racing, the criticisms that we're hearing now about the racing, you can't pass, we need softer tires. All of those things were going on then with the car of tomorrow and early on in the Gen 6 car. And so it is fascinating to me that we have nostalgia for that. I can't even begin to, and I'm going on a rant that's going to take away from what I've got going on later, but let me finish this up. I can't even begin to try to explain to Heather 20 years ago working in the garage area that there would be this romanticism for the car of tomorrow, affectionately known at the time as the flying brick. Like, everybody hated that car. Drivers hated that car. People working, watching the races hated that car. OEMs hated that car. Crew chiefs, teams, everybody hated that car. So the fact that everybody is opining for races in 2018 is astonishing to me. But, nostalgia is a funny thing. All right, coming up on the show today, we'll talk about the racing with Chris. We'll also talk about the Joey Logano, Chipper Jones feud that has broken out over the past week, and we'll look ahead to this week's race in in Texas this week. Our guest this week is Chase Briscoe, and I love talking to Chase. He is generally one of the nicest people in the garage area. He and I had a really interesting conversation about speed in the garage. If you see some of the teasers I put out this week, you've seen the clip. And just, does everybody in the garage actually have speed? Because everybody I talk to, you listen to this podcast, say, oh, we had speed, we just didn't have the finish. So interesting conversation with him about that. Also how his start to the season, about a third into the year, has gone at Joe Gibbs Racing. So let's get going.
Joining us now is our crew chief, Chris Carrier, who is also the crew chief for the number 75 Food Country Truck in the Craftsman Truck Series. Austin Cindric gets the win at Talladega this past weekend, a race that was 4 wide and had a photo finish. But some fans were still not happy about maybe the speed that the drivers were going at and the inability to pass. So is this, coming off a lackluster race at Bristol and Martinsville, a problem? Has the racing really been that bad this year, Chris?
Well, Heather, I think if you look at it from NASCAR's point, and also the promoters, the track promoters, the race promoters, the TV people end of it, okay, that are televising these races and paying pretty good money for that. I think where there's smoke, there's fire. So they've got to look at this. I mean. The fans are who we're trying to sell this to. They are the meat and potatoes of the conversation, period. And if they're not happy, if they're grumbling, if they're, now, I'm sorry, I don't care what you got. Every race isn't going to be the greatest race I've ever seen. There's races
or you would never have the greatest race.
Or you would never have the greatest race. And I've watched plenty. I watched a race at Bristol when the leader won the race by 7 laps over the entire field. Now, I was 16 years old and not really brilliant.
Well, and I guess that's my, not to interrupt you, but that's my issue with this grumbling. Is the racing greatest thing you've ever seen, as you said? No. But we're romanticizing a time where the racing at times wasn't much better.
That's true. Now, going back to Talladega, I think the root of the problem is the fact that the way the races are planned out now with the stages, which is a guaranteed caution flag to a crew chief, okay, everybody in the Cup race anyway has got it figured out that they have to run so many laps on a tank of fuel to be able to pit one time during a stage or this or that or something. I don't know. I don't know all the exact details, but everybody is in full fuel saving mode for about probably close to half the race. And that means that the throttle is not down here, it's up here, and it's just saving, and they're all running along, and everybody's doing the same thing. And there's no use being, oh, I'm the guy that's going to run wide open, because you're not going anywhere. You're not going to run away from a 41 car pack.
The Toyotas tried to push that issue. They wanted to run full bore, and they tried to get to the front, but you're right, they couldn't pass. They get the Ford set up a blockade and up front, and they're saving fuel and off you go. It was fascinating because I was watching the Max in-car cameras throughout the race, and these guys were stopping for 1 second of fuel.
Yeah.
2 seconds of fuel.
2 seconds of fuel.
That's crazy.
It is. It is. They've got it figured out, but there's also there's a part of that digital dash that tells the driver where his throttle position is, whether it's like, okay, I know I'm all the way off the gas, so that's got to be 0. Well, not really, because you have to turn the idle up on the fuel injection, the throttle body, to keep the thing running when you don't give it any gas, and then, oh, okay, I know I'm probably 2/3 the way down. Well, they have something that can tell them exactly where they are. And through the engineering, they can figure out, okay, we've got to run, say, I'm just picking numbers out of the air, we've got to run 20 laps at 50 to 60%, or we're not going to catch our fuel window, and we're going to run out of gas when everybody else doesn't, which means we're not going to do very well today. So what it boils down to, what it produces, is that running a big portion of the race, and they're sitting there 4 wide, and they're running 60% throttle or something like that, and nobody's doing nothing, and then there's no crashes.
So my question is, is it more entertaining? Because I think this is the crux of what people's argument is about Talladega. Is it more entertaining to watch these guys go 4 wide around Talladega at 60% throttle to save gas? Or is it more entertaining for them to go 1 wide all around the top, also to save gas? Because that's what was happening before the next gen car.
That's exactly what was happening. And, you know, I think, I don't know, I'm not trying to be a troublemaker here, but I think really possibly the actual root of this problem is the stage brakes.
The stage? Oh, yeah, you are being the troublemaker.
Now, my question would be, I know that, okay, let's back up just a minute. We say, why do we have stage brakes? So we'll have a caution flag, two planned caution flags, so if the field gets strung out, okay, we're going to string them back in, and everybody's going to come in and get tires if they want to. We're going to pay some points to the guys that run in the top 10. We're going to do this, we're going to do that.
It also allows TV to take a break without missing action.
It also allows TV to take a break for those very important commercial companies that we're so much in need of and so much appreciative of. But you know, now it's what, to me, it's what's killing the speedway races. And you say, well, now you want to go ahead and do away with stage brakes. Maybe pay the stage points. That's going to promote people racing, but don't have the caution.
Like they tried at the road courses a couple years ago.
Maybe, because, you know, to be honest with you, Heather, listen, I've been at Talladega this is a while back, but we ran flag to flag in a cup race back in 2001. Flag to flag, no cautions, and I'm telling you, it was 3 wide, 2 wide, 4 wide. The drivers actually got tired enough that they had to take a break. Our driver, Joe Nemechek, says, guys, I gotta box out of here for just a minute. He said, my eyes are crossing and I can't focus.
Well, I kind of like where your head is, but what if instead of eliminating the stage brakes? Because we know everybody's gonna do this. What if the first two stages are short? With one fuel window, because you know when's going to pit, and then the last one is super long, where you will have to pit and you will have to have strategy, and there could be.
I think that's along the same lines that, to me, the ideology is that you and I both have is along the lines of, like, we're going to manipulate the stage races, the stage breaks, and the points paid. So whatever. We're going to change those up in a way that is not going to adhere to doing what they're doing now. We're going to try to get away from the advantage of sitting there running, you know, 60% throttle for 20 laps. There's going to be no reason to do that, you know, unless they all just get together and unionize and say we're all doing it. No, they're not going to do that. Again, I know it's 24 years ago, but I saw it happen. I was part of it, sat on the box all day long. I said, man, this is crazy. And the drivers it was so intense, they had to get out.
I gotta be honest with you. And I heard an interview with Tyler Reddick on Sirius XM that kind of affirms what I saw, but watching those in-car cameras, even at 60% throttle, 4 wide, was crazy. You felt like the field was gonna wreck. I mean, there were just cars wobbling all over the place, and you're like,
Yeah. I mean, but to them, it's nothing. You know, to us, it is. But
I think it is. I think it is more, because Tyler said it's still really hard.
It's not easy. It's probably comparatively to running the last 2 to 3 laps at Talladega, and you're 3 wide and 4 wide, and everybody's going for the same position, and yet nobody's helping nobody. It's to heck with you. I'm going for myself, and they're bumping and beating and pushing and banging and all. Compared to that intense, the intense of running 4 wide, even at 60, 70% along, doesn't really compare to those guys. But that's, you know, they're the best in the world. They do that like you and I sitting down and eating a McDonald's kids meal or something. I mean, it's just easy to them. But I think
easier for some than others.
Easier
after
for
watching
some
an in-car
well,
camera.
Again, all of them. There is still a scale of talent even in that division. But I think it's back to the original conversation. Question is, I think we need to think about something for these speedway races, because now, come on, the speedway races at Daytona and Talladega, historically, they're the fans' favorite.
Right.
They're what they want to see. Now, some of them want to see it for different reasons than others, but they want to see that, man, I'm in there, I'm going. They want to see 42 Dale Earnhardts line up, and every one of them want to go to the front and lead every lap, and you're not getting in front of me, and I don't care about this, and I'm going. And that's what they want to see. And if 20 of them wreck, then they're like, boy, did you see that? You know, man, that was fantastic, wasn't it? But anyway, I think we need to find a way to get off the temptation, or at least the payoff of part of the race being run at half throttle.
Yeah.
Intentionally, and everybody doing it simply is like, oh, this is what we do because we've got to save some fuel, and it's going to pay off down at the end of the day, or even at the end of the stage. I don't think the fans are going to stay real excited about this for long. And here's the one thing, Heather. Our fans and our media and everybody nowadays, we know too much. We know why they're doing it.
Yeah.
And now,
because that's for real. Because if we didn't have the drivers and the media telling people that they were running 60%, nobody would look at that and know that they were running 60%.
Nobody would know it. I don't think I would know it if I was home. And I've seen a lot of races, and if I didn't know that there was a reason for it, I would say, man, those guys are hammering on. Those cars are driving pretty good right now for running 4 wide. But the fans know. We all know it. We all know what's going on, and we want to know that while we're watching that as fans, as spectators, fans want to know that they want to think that those guys are in there just giving it everything they got every lap, and that's what makes it exciting and worthwhile for them. And I still think where there's a little bit of smoke, there's some fire, and we don't need to let that fire. We need to think about something that like, and hey, NASCAR racing, I say we, the congregation, NASCAR itself, they've made tweaks and little changes to things all along. I mean, we're fixing to run an all-star race where they say the promoter has a right to throw a caution whenever he wants to. So that's to me, that's way more out in left field, if you want to, or way more exotic than saying we're going to manipulate these stages and stage breaks and plan caution flags to where nobody's really going to get anything out of running half the race or a third of the race or even one lap at 60% throttle and saying, okay, I'm doing what I'm getting paid to do.
Yeah.
There's not going to be that. So we'll see. We'll see what I think there's probably more than me and you listening to this. You know, there's probably there's probably some people in NASCAR that are hearing this and seeing this, and they may be ahead of us, maybe. Or maybe they'll watch our show. Then they'll know what to do.
Just watch.
Yeah, just watch us.
So Joey Logano got upset with his teammate, Austin Cindric, during Sunday's race, which caused him to go on a bit of a tirade on the radio. That tirade led to a response from former Braves player, third baseman, Chipper Jones, who wrote on X, congratulations to Austin Cindric on his Talladega win. Good teammates are hard to come by, boss. Remember the one who, of yours, sorry, it's in little text language a little bit, so I struggle. Remember that one of yours MF'd you on national television when in all actuality, you did everything possible to keep from wrecking him. Hate to be the deuces in the team, in quotes, meeting on Monday. Some people hooray for our team as long as I'm the star and as everything has them. Hendrick, RCR, JGR, Penske, etc. Sometimes karma is glorious. Enjoy this one. In case anyone is confused, let me be clear, at Joey Logano. All right, first of all, I did not have a Joey Logano Chipper Jones feud on my bingo card this week. Also, is the criticism from Jones fair?
Well, I think Chipper Jones I think he's a pretty big race fan.
He is a huge race fan.
I think he's a huge race fan. Let's remember he was a nationally known, very, very well known, very good professional athlete. And he played a team sport. Okay, NASCAR racing has become a team sport, although a lot of us old school guys really don't like that. We think it needs to be 42 guys against everybody else. But anyway.
And I really think that is Joey Logano's mentality as well.
Maybe, but I think that to answer the question, is Chipper Jones out of line? In today's world of, again, everybody knows what's going on in everybody's world. I mean, people in Hong Kong probably know when this show's going to be aired and all this stuff like that, everything. But I think Chipper Jones is just you know, venting a little bit at somebody that's like, you're acting like a crybaby, bud. I mean, what are you doing?
But here's the thing. Joey Logano's communication was on the team radio.
Yep.
You know, and no other sport we didn't get to listen to the huddles in the dugout when Chipper Jones was playing for the Braves. You're telling me that he never got mad at the teammate for making a mistake?
We've heard
just because those channels are free and available doesn't mean that every conversation is meant for everyone. And that's my problem with this whole thing. I mean, Chipper is entitled to his opinion. But this is team communication during the race, in the heat of the moment. You're telling me that if Chipper had a mic on and somebody dropped the ball on a game-winning play in the World Series that he wouldn't have
He
MF'd
probably
them?
would have. And I remember watching Peyton Manning with arguing with Jeff Saturday in the offensive line on the sidelines during one of the playoff games. It was a review of something, you know, and man, that got pretty hot.
Right.
I thought they was going to fight.
So that's my biggest thing. It's like,
I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that. I felt like Joey's. If I was Roger Penske, and I'm not, or even if I was his general manager, if I was his crew chief or his spotter or whoever, I would expect better of him at that point. I would expect, especially after the first 4 or 5 seconds of it, he should have thought and said, people are listening to this.
Well, and I don't know.
People in the stands are listening to it.
I don't know what the relationship is with Joey and his spotter. I know,
they're
I
good
believe
friends.
it's Coleman Presley, right?
They're good friends, yeah.
See, so
good friends.
I guess that might be the point where he might have to just jump in and say, we get it, move on.
Yeah.
Because I've definitely heard spotters or crew chiefs say that before. We get it, you're mad, move on.
And the common sense thing to do is you're a crew chief, you're a spotter, or whoever you are, that's an authority figure, and you're saying, this is not good, what he's saying is not good. Trust me, the Penske people had a lot of practice at it when Kurt Busch drove. I mean, they're, you know, and I love Kurt. He's a good friend of mine. I love his talent. I don't really know Joey, but I know his team says he's a great teammate. He treats them all very well, and they know one thing: when he jumps in that car to drive, it doesn't matter where it's at, when it's at, or whatever, it's 100%. I mean, he's after it. But this is something that happens, Heather. It's going to, and what you got to do, you got to figure out, okay, how are we going to do a little damage control here? The best way to do is when he's ranting away, just key the mic and start talking. Then nobody hears nothing.
Right.
It's, you know, and like, what did he say? I don't know. I didn't hear that. So
little inside tip for any crew chiefs or spotters that might be listening from, I guess, a crew chief who's had experience
guys that are
with that.
racing local short track this weekend, and somebody bumps your car, and your driver gets real hot, and there was words coming out that you've never heard, and people in the stands are looking at one another. Just while he's talking, just key the mic and start talking, and then everybody will say, I don't know, that must be interference from somebody watching the backstretch.
Tips to crew chiefing by Chris Carey. You never know what you're going to learn here. All right, NASCAR heads to Texas this week. We're starting a string of 1.5-mile intermediate type tracks here for a while, save the All-Star race. So what do we expect this week at Texas? Texas
is, I think, a racetrack that a lot of people, before they go, they're like, you know, it's not a racetrack that a lot of people are saying, man, I can't wait to get there. It's my favorite racetrack, man. We go fast there. You got a lot of grip. You can do this. You can pass this, that, and other. It's a racetrack that since the last reconfiguration, a lot of people are saying, got to be careful there. It is a fast racetrack. From the early part of the backstretch all the way around through turn 3 and 4 and down the front stretch is a lot of speed, a lot of grip, a lot of speed. The problem is getting into turn 1, the middle of 1 and 2, and then the exit coming off turn 2, where they use the, I don't know if they use PJ1 or resin or whatever they use, grip spray is what I call it. It gets a little hairy because the corner is, the best way I can say it, it's not even all the way around. It's not a true circle. It goes in, you make a cut to go in the corner, and you get in the middle of the corner, you got to make another pretty hard cut, and then you kind of run off the corner, and you can run up high, you can run down low. A lot of times up high is where the traction is, and it's no traction, so people get in trouble. And they come off there 3 and 4 wide, but out of the 3 and 4 wide, about 2 of them or 3 of them were out of control. So it's tough. It's hard. It's very difficult. The drivers are trying to find the best way through that 1 and 2 corner and set themselves up for the rest of the racetrack so they can take advantage of that grip down in turn 3 and 4 and the ability to run almost wide open around through there the whole race. But the 1 and 2 is really, and that when they refigured the racetrack, that's kind of, they intended it for it to be very different on both ends to make it more of a driver's racetrack. And I think they did it. They did accomplish that. Makes it tough for crew chief, race engineers, and people that are trying to figure out, okay, what kind of setup we got to do? Which end do we want to get through primarily the best, the whole night? So I think you'll see some treacherous racing. You'll see some hard racing. It'll be fast, especially through that end of the racetrack where 3 and 4 is. Everything down in Texas they put on a big show. They do a very good job at that. I cannot even venture to tell you who's the favorite there this week. Everything's too confusing right now for me. I keep waiting for the Chevrolets to start being like step up and really be dominant and this, that, and the other. And we all were crying the blues for the Fords early in the year, just like last year when they won the championship. And I'm not sure where it all shakes out. I think it's going to be interesting to see who pops up to be the cream of the crop.
First of all, Chase, thanks for joining us this week.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So let's talk about, I guess we're about a little under a third into the season. How would you kind of grade your transition over to JGR? How do you think it's going?
Yeah, I would say it's probably I don't know, B minus, C plus. I don't know. It's been kind of up and down. I definitely feel like we've had flashes of, good speed. We've had good speed, I feel like, at every single racetrack we've went to, with the exception of Darlington. We just haven't been able to have the finishes at all those, where we've had the speed. So that part's been, frustrating to a certain extent. But, a lot of it, too, is just weird circumstances and just weird situations, especially those first 2 or 3 weeks after the Daytona penalty, and you race with a way different aggression level, and you think you're in a must win versus, now being in a situation where we have all those points back. So, yeah, I don't know. I'd say a B minus to C plus. I've been telling everybody this, like, I don't feel like we're even close to our potential. Like, I feel like we're literally running at like a 70% efficiency rate right now. Just with me being comfortable in the car and just from a communication standpoint, everything, like, we have a ton of room to be way better. And, that's going to just take time, right? So for us to be able to have the speed and the results that we've had, I think we've had 3 or 4 top 5s already this year. That's the encouraging thing, I think, is just how, like, bad I personally feel like we are, or not bad, but like we're just not even close to our full potential yet. And for us to be that competitive already is definitely encouraging. So yeah, I'm excited just to continue to improve and just as a team even get better.
How much of that is this car? And I ask that because I interview drivers every week, and I feel like 2/3 of you guys say, we have the speed, we just don't have the finishes. So how much of that is just a product of this car and things like track position and pit strategy being as much of the equation as just raw speed?
Yeah, I mean, definitely a lot of it is the car, right? Where, if you lose your track position, it is really, really hard to get it back. For us, I feel like, there's only a couple cars in the field that have like superior speed, right? And it's normally the Hendrick cars and the Joe Gibbs cars, and Penske normally has one or two in there too. And so I feel like we're a little bit different even than a majority of the field, because everybody, to a certain extent does have speed, but our cars typically can get through the field a little bit easier, and that's the thing I would say is a little bit more frustrating for us is we feel like we should be able to lose our track position at times and still drive back through there. Between me making mistakes, and we've had a lot of mistakes on pit road this year with penalties and just bad pit stops and things like that. It's really kind of affected a lot of our finishes. So yeah, for us, we know we can clean a lot of things up and be way better. So yeah, just excited to kind of finally get in the swing of things here. And this is the part of the schedule where if you have a really fast race car, you should be able to score a lot of points, because it's just mile and a half racetracks where the speed really makes the difference. So yeah, looking forward to it.
You led perfectly into my next question, was going to be the month of May, early June has got to be exciting for you. It seems to be right in Toyota and specifically Joe Gibbs' sweet spot with Texas and Kansas and Charlotte and Nashville. That run of races, you guys have that circled on the schedule?
Yeah, I would say I do. It's funny because in the past, Stuart Haas, this was always the part of the schedule I hated. We were always just would give up a ton of points, and this was always the part of the schedule last 4 or 5 years of my Cup career where everything's kind of just been rough. Like we just don't have great runs. We're 20th to 25th kind of every single week. There's weeks where we maybe get in the top 10 to top 15, but for the most part, it was always a struggle. And yeah, I'm definitely excited. This is the first time I've been this excited about going to these types of racetracks, just because from a car standpoint, from past history, you would say that definitely Joe Gibbs Racing and Toyotas have it going on. So yeah, I'm definitely excited. Vegas was a little bit of a head scratcher, I would say, for us, even as a whole company. Like we just didn't feel like we were near as good as what we typically would have been at a place like that. So we know that a lot of the fields got closer, but yeah, certainly excited for this next kind of month and a half of the schedule.
We talk a little bit about Texas specifically. I named off all those tracks. Texas is the one that seems to be, at least from a viewer standpoint, a little bit different than the rest of those mile and a half. Would that be a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Texas definitely is very unique. Out of all the mile and a halves we go to, it's the one with the most discrepancy in the two ends for sure. 1 and 2, we're on the brake pedal, we're downshifting. And then you go to 3 and 4, and we're almost wide open. It just takes two totally different types of driving styles and car setups. So Texas is definitely a challenge, I think, from that standpoint, just because it does take all these different variables. It takes the engine, it takes the aero, it takes the setup. It does that everywhere, but at Texas, it's really extreme because it is two totally polar opposite ends. So hopefully, we can go there and kind of do all the things right. I definitely am excited to go to Texas, just because I do feel like it's a great opportunity for us.
Final question. The one and only off week of the season is now in our rear view. I know as a dad of young kids, you were probably just busy being dad. How
Yeah.
important was that one off week for you to kind of recharge and be around the family?
Yeah, it was great. I wish we had more off weeks, right? I mean, everybody that works wants more off time, right? But for me, it was nice just to be able to be like 100% present. Like I knew that for an entire week, I did not have to do anything work related. Where normally I might get a day off, but you're still kind of in work mode to a certain extent. Where that past week, I was able to just be fully invested in being at home and being present. So it was great. I definitely felt recharged after, still even feel recharged to a certain extent. It's just nice whenever you can, be home that much, as much as we're gone. So yeah, I was definitely welcome to the off week, and wish we had a couple more.
For my final thought today, I want to get back to what Chris and I talked about when I talked about pretty extensively in the intro, which is the racing product this year. Now, I will admit, I've been covering the sport now for 23 years. And the racing's not good this year. Like it's not good. In recent memory, peak racing performance and the best racing was probably around 2019, right before COVID. Um, as far as passing and all that kind of stuff, and also a little bit of parity. But this is not good. This is not even as good as it was last year, in my opinion. So something's happened with the next gen car. It's not good. However, we don't, as much as you romanticize about how great things were 20 years ago when you were a kid, and we all have that romance about things when we lived in a simpler time and we didn't have to pay bills. Well, all we did was, collect trading cards and watch races and, look at our heroes. We're not going back to that. There are elements of that and years of that time that were just as bad, if not worse, than what we are seeing on track product now. And it is very humorous to me to read the discourse on social media because you get one of two things. You get, oh my gosh, the racing is amazing. These people are crazy. Or you get, this is the worst racing I've ever seen in my life. When reality is somewhere in the middle. Now, I will agree, and Chris said it perfectly when we were talking to him earlier. I will agree that we're here for the fans, and what the fans want is what we need to give, right? If the fans think the racing's not that great, if the fans think we need better racing, then we need better racing. But I can also tell you that if we actually gave the fans what they wanted, from experience, from what I saw in the past, they would not like that. That's not what they want. You think you want that because you have this romance in your head because it was what you perceived 20 years ago, what you see watching a clip. But when people watched it in real time, that's not what they wanted either. So I really believe that we do need to push forward to try to improve the racing, but let's not go backwards. Let's actually push forward. Like, let's move the sport forward and find better racing that is also 2025 racing and not 1997 or 2008 or 2018 or whatever racing. Like, let's move forward. Thanks for joining me on the Backstretch. We'll see you next week.